set my handy dandy timer because I can't see back there. I'm a little blind. Not blind. Just a little challenge visually. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Yvette Trujillo. I am a religious science practitioner. I am a ministerial student, and I'm so glad to be here with you today. So, where are we? Where are we? What time of year are we? Last week I would have said, or the week before I would have said, wait, we're moving into summer. This is really nice. And then we got some snow. And of course, this morning we had the time change, right? So these are all these signals, the back and forth of the weather, a signal of spring. The time change, definitely, at least in the states where you do it, a signal of change. And I know when I'm in the middle of winter, although we had a very mild winter this year, even so, it really doesn't matter because I'm not a big winter fan. I mean, it's pretty. I like to look at it from inside where it's warm, maybe a fire, and I get to watch the beautiful snow. But I know all through winter, for me, I am imagining, oh, warmer weather. And when spring comes, I don't have to put a coat on when I leave the house to just throw the trash, right? All the little things that signal for me a greater degree of comfort, right? This is something that I look forward to. I imagine, I think of wearing short sleeves, putting away, I don't have enough closet space for all my clothes, so I put away my summer clothes, and then you have to figure it out, right? Because like, is it time to bring out the summer clothes yet? Or is it gonna do this? So there's all these calculations and imaginings that I do as I am thinking about, wishing for, hoping, just imagining that spring, warmer weather is on its way. But first, the back and forth. First, 69, 70 degrees, and then snow. First, wind and dirt pelting you, right? The discomfort of that in between where you are and where you'd like to be. And that's when you want the change, right? So it makes it a little more livable, doable, acceptable when we are wanting something. Now, I'm a person who really likes change. I am a change agent. I go into organizations to help them change. That's what I do. But what I recognize is that I'm getting a little bit older, is it's not quite as easy as it used to be. It's a little harder. I'm a little more attached to what is, even when it's not quite what I want, but I've gotten used to it, right? So there's this, like, I have a love of change, and now it's like, it's getting harder. But again, most times, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it doesn't look like it's something that I want, eventually I can begin to see the spark of the thing that I wanted, the shadow of the thing that I was intending and calling for. Even sometimes when it's changed that is not look like I wanted that at all, right? So when it's something that I wanted and that I've asked for and I'm aware of that, it's a little bit easier. But what about when it's not something that I've asked for or wanted and I can't see those shadows or those little signals that, like, oh, pumpkin, this is the thing you wanted. It's coming. It's coming. So this month we're talking about harbingers of spring. And as you've heard, my talk title today is Winds of Change. So spring is clearly on its way, right? And the winds of change are blowing. And not just because it's spring and the wind and we're in New Mexico, right? Other places are getting rain, we get the winds. And for each one of us, we may be experiencing some kind of change, right? We might be having an experience in our health that is shifting. We might be having shifts in the experience of our engagement of the world, in our work, in our volunteering, right? We might be experiencing changes in our relationships, whether it's friendships or love relationships, that they are shifting, changing, ending. maybe even beginning, right? And that's a joyful change. I have a new friend. I have a new love interest. This is so exciting. And it's still change. And there can be now when it's a love interest, boy, you don't really notice the things that are uncomfortable. All of a sudden things expand and you have all the time in the world to spend and talk and share and reveal and know and learn and all those things. So love is kind of an exception. So on an individual basis, right, we have things shifting, maybe you're moving. And definitely collectively, this is a time of change. For some of us, we experience it, and I think in general, it is a time of social upheaval, right? Think of a shovel going into the ground, right? I grew up on a pecan orchard, and we're always disking, turning the ground. It's kind of a violent thing to do, to shove your shovel into the ground and tear it up, right? And we are in the middle of social upheaval, and tensions are high. And for some of us, these changes feel like progress, and they feel positive. But for others of us, it can feel like loss. Right? It can feel painful. It can feel shocking. It can feel like a shovel going into the dirt and turning things around. But no matter how we feel about these changes, either our individual changes or our collective social changes, change of any kind requires something of us. And if you're not in the middle of it now, think back to a time when you were in the midst of change and notice that there is something in you when things are changing in your life, when things are changing socially, that is being called of us, that is being drawn out of us in times of change. And so today what I want to do is explore 3 spiritual anchors for us to help us to navigate the changes that you might be going through individually, or to help us as we navigate the changing of our world around us. So the first is, and let me say that the desire is not just to survive, which sometimes I know for myself when I'm in the midst of big change, when I'm in the midst of social change, when what I am used to and what I love or what I like is shifting and moving and changing, I often think, okay, girl, you're going to get to a day when you're on the other side of this. And that sometimes gets me through. I'm not going to lie. That is something that I turn to, especially when I feel the most ungrounded and shifted and not knowing what's coming. But my hope is that we can move through it, not just surviving it, but with grace, with courage, and with faith. That's my hope, is that we can look at these anchors as ways to do that. So the first is acknowledging the reality of change. The hardest is always the first is always the hardest. Boy, got a little dyslexic thing going on today. The first is the hardest. So acknowledging the reality of change, finding stillness, and then acting from love, not fear. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. So acknowledging the reality of change. I was down south this last weekend on the farm, right? I grew up on a pecan orchard. I shared that with you. And we had these big, big winds. In fact, huge, huge winds this last week. And I woke up in the middle of the night, Saturday night, and I heard through the trees. It was intense. You know, every year, so we have the pecan orchard, but every year we would buy a live Christmas tree. So all those live Christmas trees are gigantic, right? And so those catch a lot of wind. So I wake up in the middle of the night And I imagined myself, as I was preparing for this talk, going out into the, to kind of have a big circle drive to the farm and standing out there in the middle of it. Stop! How effective would that be? Have you ever tried to stop the wind with your puny little hand? Have you ever tried to grab up a handful of sand and grab onto it tight? And those little granules just slip your fingers. And all of a sudden you got just a teeny tiny little puny amount of sand in your hand. We can't stop the wind. Change is constant. Change is always happening, as we've heard so far this morning, whether we embrace it or not. Change is constant, whether we embrace it or not. So the question is not, how do I stop change? How do I stop change? But how do we move with it without losing ourselves? Right? A relationship might be falling away. Things are changing. To grasp on and to hold it so that it doesn't change is futile. How do we move with it without losing ourselves? So change is happening. Acknowledging the reality of change, right? The diagnosis has been made. The relationship has shifted. Our society has and is and continues to change. And that change can bring both loss and opportunity, right? And what we want to do is we do want to, if this is an experience of loss or grief for you, we want to honor that grief and loss. We don't want to do a spiritual bypass. If there is grief and loss, we want to honor that. But we don't let that fear and that loss define us. What is your experience when you're watching the news and you're watching the change? Do not let the changes that are happening in your personal life and in the world define you, that grief, that fear, that loss. And it's important to remember and to know that accepting something, acknowledging something as so, does not mean that you are giving up. And I know I had a lot of trouble with acceptance years ago because I thought it meant that then I was just gonna stay stuck where I was because I needed to be fighting it. Acceptance is not giving up. What acceptance allows is the space for us to choose rather than react. Byron Katie, the author of Loving What Is, teaches us this core idea that suffering comes not from what happens, but from our thoughts about what happens. Our suffering, this is a really, really important distinction. Our suffering comes not from what happens. It's not from what's happening in your life right now. Suffering comes from our thoughts about what happens, what we make it mean, what it taps into our belief systems. That's where suffering comes from. And a system that she built, the work, is a series of 4 questions that helps us kind of deal with stressful thoughts. So the first one is it true? Is it true that this isn't fair? That this shouldn't be happening to me? At this point in my life, that this should not be happening to me. Is that true? The answer is, that feels like it's true. Okay, is this a trick question? Yes, it is. Because the next one is going to absolutely know that it's true. This isn't fair. This shouldn't be I am moving into the golden years, and this should not be the state of the world, the state of my body, the state of my finances, the state of fill in the blank. And I absolutely know that that's true. The third question is, how do I react when I believe that thought? How do I react? What do I do? What do I think? What do I say when I believe that thought, that this shouldn't be happening, and I'm so mad, and this isn't fair? How do I react? Who do I be? And then the fourth question is, who would I be without that thought? Who would I be without the thought that this isn't right, this isn't fair, this shouldn't be happening? Who do I be if that's absent? Imagine the energy that you might be, not everybody, but might be putting into that thought of it shouldn't be, the resistance, how much energy you give it, anger, resentment, gossip. And can you believe it? I know, right? And oh my God, what? There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy in that. Imagine that energy if you could gather it up and call it back to you. Accepting something, loving what is, loving the current situation. It is not passive acceptance. It does not mean that we don't do something, that we don't act, that we don't think, that we don't feel. It is not passive. It means that we pause to take a moment so that we can respond instead of react. We're going to keep saying that again and again and again. It gives us the opportunity to respond. Accepting and loving what is empowerment instead of resistance. You take that energy back. Energy is power. When you send out that power, it's going out and away from you. If you harness that back in, you bring that power back to you. It is empowerment to acknowledge what is instead of putting your energy against it. And we forget to have peace in our action. Because we get to choose our next step with wisdom and strength. And from that place, it can be done peacefully instead of with anger. Another way to look at this is the parable of the farmer. So there's this wise farmer, and he's got his land, and his horse runs away. And the neighbors come over, and they're like, oh my God, that's so awful. And the farmer says, maybe. And a couple of days later, his horse returns, and he brought some buddies with him, some wild horses. And the neighbors come over again, they're like, oh my God, this is so great, how wonderful. And the farmer says, maybe. And then his son, who helps him on the farm, decides he's going to jump on one of those wild horses to take a ride, and the horse bucks him off, and he breaks his leg. He's his helper on the farm. And the neighbors all come over, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. I hope that you're okay. This is just awful for you. And the farmer says, well, maybe. And not long after, the army came through the village, drafting young men for war. And because his leg was broken, his son was spared. And the neighbors yet again come over and say, oh, how wonderful. This is marvelous. What luck. And the farmer said, maybe. So what does this teach us? We often rush to label events as good or as bad based on how they feel in the moment. We rush to label something as good or bad based on how we're feeling in the moment. We rush to it. Oh, how wonderful. Oh, that's terrible. But what if instead of reacting, we stayed open to the unfolding of life? We can recognize that we don't always see the full picture from where we are. And what feels like loss might just be the beginning of something wonderful new. If we don't rush, we get to explore that and experience it. So what is it? What is it that we want to do? We want to try and, in times of crisis, whether it's our personal crisis or collective crisis, we want to have radical presence. Because it's easy to think, oh no, how cruel, how terrible, there's no coming back from this. You know the deal. And yet our history, and in our own lives, and in our country, and in our world, what seems like destruction can often be the beginning of transformation. What happens to the caterpillar? It melts. It melts the chrysalis into goo. It goes from being a little happy caterpillar, fat little guy who's crawling around eating leaves, going and creating this little chrysalis, and he melts. And then he emerges. What seems like destruction can often be the beginning of transformation. And we can see that in the rearview mirror of our lives again and again and again. You have survived 100% of all the things that have happened to you in your life. You are still here. You have survived. And you have breath. Radical presence asks us to pause before rushing to conclusions. And again, it doesn't mean that we don't breathe, that we don't act, that we don't feel deeply. It means we hold the moment lightly, knowing that there is more still to do. And hold the moment lightly. So when we look at our own lives, in our world, what if, what if I don't yet know how this story is? I've made up a story. I've projected into the future. I think I know how this ends. What if we paused and we said, what if I don't yet know how this story ends? What would it feel like to trust in something deeper than my fear? And how can I stay open to possibility even when I can't yet see it? How do I stay open to a greater, more beautiful possibility in a situation or moment, even when I don't see it? And like the farmer, we might just find that it seems impossible today. I can so often today keep us to something really new. Maybe. So what happens when you solve it? So think about change, and oftentimes change for a lot of people. I'm good with change. I like it. Some of you probably are as well. But if you're not really happy about the change, the thought of softening might feel like, are you kidding me? You want me to soften? I'm protecting myself. But when we want to move into the next item on the list, which is finding stillness, it can be really tough. And in these rooms, we talk about spiritual practices, right? Like practice when it's easy, so that when it's hard, you've got it, got the tool in the toolbox and I know how to use it. That's fantastic. What if we haven't done that? What if we haven't sharpened our tools? What if we're in the middle of crisis and we haven't done any of that? Yvette, how do I get still in the middle of a storm? Where was that? Barbara Holmes, Build Relationships, who our founder. Well, hello, was a faculty member at the Center for Active and Contemplation. She's a spiritual teacher, activist, writer. And she talks about this really powerful concept called crisis contemplation. And where it comes from, where she talks about it from, is from the experience of Africans being stolen, put on ships, and brought to this country to be slaves. And imagine being stolen and shoved into the belly of a giant ship, not knowing, terrified, being treated horrifically. What she talks about in this crisis contemplation is how moments of deep struggle, whether personal or collective, can become open for spiritual transformation. Right? So I haven't tried mindfulness yet. I haven't practiced meditation and sitting there for 20 minutes to an hour. But crisis, instead of trying to escape it, she invites us to engage in it as a space where the sacred breaks through and awakens us to a deeper wisdom. We're being cracked open by the challenge, and it creates resilience in it. And it creates connection between them. Crisis contemplation. And connected to crisis contemplation, I haven't practiced this, I don't know, but what we can do is we can be mindful. Not about sitting on our cushion in the lotus position with our eyes closed or maybe staring at a candle and being able to do that. But in the midst of anything, we can become mindful. Even in the midst of crisis, we can pause and become aware of what is happening around us. Become aware of our breathing, become aware of our heartbeat, become aware of the fact that there's snow on the ground and the sun is shining and reflecting into that beautiful yellow ground. And then it calls us, mindfulness calls us to be fully present with our experience rather than pushing away at it. And when things are happening and we don't want it to happen, we want the other thing that we had, that we love, and we would refuse to. We want to run, we want to back up, or we want to get out of the current situation of things that we're in. So mindfulness, and that idea of crisis contemplation, being able to do it in the midst of the storm, asks us to just be present in the moment. Being mindful helps us to step into our experience. And the eyes of the head. And with the presence, and with the fear, the eyes, the belly, the head. And stillness allows us to feel a feeling calmness within us. Instead of reacting, resisting from a place of anger or fear. Stillness allows us to feel it within us. Fear being alone, all by itself. Bring that up now. And fear drives division. Fear drives anger and retreat and disengagement. But we are called to something higher. You can feel it within yourself. I believe that when we can tap into that stillness in the middle of the storm, when you can move within to the eye of the storm that is within you, you can feel that you are, in the midst of this storm, being called to something higher. whether it's the higher of like, is it really serving me to? Man, I can't believe this is so awful. Holy cow! And what did they say? Something is calling me. Something higher. Ernest Holmes, our founder, says there is a power to good in the universe greater than you. Acting from love is not an action. Loving another who is really not your favorite person right now is not being love. It means you move forward without moving anybody. Means that you move forward with what makes you angry. The chance of the current life. You are with your enemy. You can sleep. Lonely and sleep. I hate you. You're bad guy. I can't believe. How could you? You're evil. But acting from love means you move forward without moving. You hold space for those who suffer and for those who seek to implicitly behavior. Love and both. Why I think we think of love as a lonely thing. I have no problem with the word love. I think like saw little, elementary school cardboard cutouts with the paper lace. And you would give your mom the Valentine, which is very sweet. But I just thought it was sugary sweet, like whatever. Love. Love is powerful. It is a powerful force in the world. We hold space through love for those who suffer and for those who see change differently, who don't agree with it. And by doing that, what we become a bridge. So walking together can change. Changes changes in the work change. But how we move it, how we move that change is up to us. Acknowledge what is. Acknowledge what is good and be. Find the stillness within the storm and discern. And the stillness within the storm and discern that is your city. And move forward not from fear. Peace not from fear. Peace not from fear. Transformation comes from and consciousness. When we wake up to the way the world is. And when we be still enough to hear. When we be still enough. And when we walk together together, let's work in unity. So we're going to look at personal change or cultural change, societal change. We walk through the resistance together, touching, and unity.